Hello and welcome to another episode of the Course Creators Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Cordiner. Now today we are talking about peak performance. If we are going to be strong leaders, if we are going to be articulate, creative, thoughtful, if we are going to be there for people, we need to first be there for ourselves. We cannot operate at our potential and deliver our optimum service if we ourselves are not in an optimum place in terms of our health and in terms of our bodily, mental, cognitive functions. Now, I have an incredible expert here with us today. His name is Korey Samuelson, and his area of expertise is in Stoic strength, meaning optimum performance, being healthy in body, in mind, and more. And he's going to tell us a lot more about this. We today are going to get some tips on how we can make sure that we are operating at our best so that we can serve at our best and really help our students to its maximum potential. Now, Korey, who's coming on today, is a cognitive strength training coach. He's a fitness trainer and a Stoic. He's been working out personally for over 35 years and helping other people to do so professionally since 2012. He's over in Calgary, Alberta with his girlfriend Keely, and this is my favorite part about him. He's kept 5 plants alive for over 6 months now. Amazing. That's probably one of the best intros I've ever actually read. He also has a free gift for you today, which you can find over at gymmanual.com. There's a link to that down in the show notes. Korey, it is absolutely wonderful to have you with us today. I'm really excited about this topic. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. This is awesome. Looking forward to it.
Korey, you and I have been in each other's worlds for a little while now, and I know that you recently completed my How to Create Profitable Online Courses course, and through that self-study program, you actually created your course, your very first online course, and you've now just gone through my Concept to Course 30-day group coaching program, and I know that you've got plenty more on the way. But before we hear all about your experience going online, I know you're going to tell us some tips and tricks and things that you've learned about going online. How did you kind of get into this space of, cognitive strength? What is cognitive strength? What is Stoic strength? Tell us what this means.
Well, I liked part of what your introduction, you used the word operating a couple of times. And Stoic strength to me is operating with excellence in the moment of choice. And I consider exercise to be more of a mental training, almost exclusively, in fact, and less about the body. Not that the body isn't involved, obviously, it is. It's the context in which we learn to train our minds, but it's learning to make the choices, because when you exercise, like if you work with a trainer or you exercise on your own in the gym or wherever it is, you exercise physically for, let's say, an average of 45 minutes to an hour. And then what do you do with the rest of your time? Those are the choices then that make the exercise that you did either something that's going to help you or something that basically just, potentially doesn't do that much for you. The choices of what to eat, how much rest you're getting, how well you relax and take care of yourself. And then, that all bleeds into everything else that you're doing. I'm not sure if I answered everything there, but I gave it a shot.
You use this description of yourself, as a Stoic. What does that mean? What does that look like? If we are a Stoic, what are we? What does our life look like? Who are we? How are we living? Who are we being?
Yeah, Stoic is, there's the common usage of the word Stoic, and that's that stiff upper lip, very unemotional, handling stress and the chaos of life with, nary a shudder, right? It's being tough. But if you're thinking of Stoic with a capital S, that's actually a philosophy. And the main goal of a Stoic, who is a Stoic philosopher or trying to be one, is that you're trying to be excellent as a human being. And that gets back to that word operating. You're trying to operate with excellence, and you care more about your character than you do about necessarily the results that you get. So you're always trying to make those excellent choices in the moment. And we use the word virtue, which is a bit of an old-fashioned word, but it basically just means excellence as a human being. So
Amazing.
it's something to aspire toward, that's for sure.
And yeah, isn't this, as educators, creators, experts, this is at the core of what we're doing, isn't it? We're here to not only show our own excellence and be excellent, but we're doing that to be of service to others. We are doing what we do to be the best human we can be, so that we can help other people unearth and unleash their own excellence as well, help them reach their potential. So, if we are going to be able to do that, I mean, we're quite literally doing something that is huge. When we are in a position of moving beyond ourselves and helping other people reach their own level of excellence, we have to be in a pretty secure place. We have to be in a place where we're very grounded. We are very self-actualized. We are in a place of feeling and being full in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that can be tough, right? Life is hard. Now, I know this. I'm a parent. I've got other stuff going on in my life. There's a lot of turmoil in the world right now. A lot of educators are naturally empaths. They teach because they care about other people, and as such, they sense how other people feel. So particularly with what's going on in the world right now, I think a lot of us are carrying a lot of burdens, mentally, emotionally. There's a lot of anxiety about what's going on in the world. Korey, I'd love you to give us some tips here. How, in terms of us being leaders and being teachers and being educators, if we ourselves are feeling depleted, or our minds are in chaos, or we are not quite in that place of being able to self-actualize and therefore be of service to others, what tips can you give us? How do we get through this fog? How do we find that internal stoic strength so that we can be fantastic leaders?
Well, part of it is that what you're saying about being of service to the community and the world at large, that is actually a big part of Stoicism as well. There's Marcus Aurelius, if you know that he wrote Meditations, he actually talks about what's good for the bee is good for the hive, and vice versa. If it's not good for the hive, it's not good for the bee. So the larger world, we're looking at ourselves as a citizen of the earth and not just of our little tiny group, right? Now, one of the main things, just because I'm a fitness trainer and a coach, is if you want to be healthy in your mind, you have to exercise. And the benefits to our brain health far outweigh the benefits to our physical health. Because if you think about exercising in order to be healthier with your thinking and with your mental state, then the body comes along as part of the context anyway, because that is the context in which we exercise, right? That's how we're training our mind. So it's taking the focus a little bit less off just I'm going to lose 10 pounds or I'm going to gain 20 pounds of muscle or whatever that physical goal is. And it's actually thinking, okay, how can I use exercise to think better, to feel better, to improve my mood, to increase my focus, to improve and increase my productivity, especially as business builders, right? So that would be my first tip, is consider when you exercise to be mind training as opposed to just completely devoid of any mind interaction. That is key to my philosophy.
So one of the things that I love to ask people is that, you live and breathe what you do. You have been practicing and mastering these techniques and what you're so passionate about for quite some time. I've got to know you particularly over the last couple of months, and know that this is what you live and breathe every single day, so much so that you help other people live and breathe it too. Now, for those of us who perhaps could do with a little bit of support and direction in this, I certainly am not excellent at being excellent in terms of taking care of myself, right? And I know there are days when that massively affects my performance. It affects how much I can be there and serve other people. There are times when I've had to cancel appointments because I stayed up too late. I didn't eat very good food. I perhaps had one too many glasses of red wine, or I haven't been sleeping well enough, or I haven't done enough exercise, or I haven't done enough mindfulness. And I know that I need to do it. I know a lot of people listening have found themselves in that same position. Now, for those of us who need a bit more help in this space, first of all, could you give us a little glimpse into your daily routine? I mean, could you give us some idea of what we could aspire to have our days looking like? Or is there maybe an example of a daily routine that us course creators and leaders could consider implementing into our lives?
Sure. One thing that I would not a caveat exactly, but as a way of introduction, one of the things that I was going to talk about today is that sometimes we are too ambitious. And what I mean by that is that we set ourselves such lofty goals and we hold ourselves to such a high standard that we put pressure on ourselves beyond what anyone else would do, right? We're our own toughest boss, so to speak. And so one of the things that you can do is set aside some time in the morning to set the standards that you want for that day, but be reasonable about them. And if you're focusing on say 5 behaviors that you're gonna, I'm gonna drink enough water, and tell yourself how much water that is, so you know when you're succeeding. And you're gonna take 5 minutes every half an hour to stand up and stretch a little bit. That's another standard you can have. And then, whatever it happens to be for the other to make up the total of 5. And there's going to be many, many behaviors throughout the day. And we can beat ourselves up when we just in the moment think, oh, I wasn't as good as I could have been in that moment. But the thing is, did we set that as our standard? I like to tell people to just relax everything that we're not focusing on in the moment, right? So if I have 5 things that I'm trying to do, the 6th thing, the 7th thing, the 8th thing, we might hold ourselves to a standard that we didn't actually agree to. It's like having boundaries with a partner or a boss or an employee. We have to do the same for ourselves. We set the boundaries for ourselves so that we can then celebrate the victories and not beat ourselves up when we fail at something that we didn't agree to even achieve, right? So I didn't really get into the routines too much, but that is one thing. Look at what you're going to do during the day, set the standards that you want to achieve, and then just hold yourselves to those standards, not to everything else. It's like the difference between dreams and goals. Goals have deadlines. Goals are concrete. Dreams, if we fail to achieve a dream, some people beat themselves up. And I don't think that that's a good idea. I think that we can get into a lot of stress and a lot of guilt and a lot of shame when we shouldn't. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And so, what I'm getting from that really is that, we can set ourselves standards. I love the word standards. We can set ourselves standards for intellectual activities. We can set ourselves mindful standards, physical standards, nutrition standards. I mean, am I right in the sort of going, right, we can kind of look across that board ourselves and make our own decisions, what they are, and create a routine for ourselves. Wonderful. Now, I loved that you mentioned shame there. Shame is one of the lowest vibrational energies there is. And I know for a fact, I've set myself goals. I'm someone who's highly ambitious, if anyone listening to this probably knows that about me. And when I set myself a goal, I will move hell on earth to make sure I attain it. I am also somebody who will set myself to such a high standard of achieving that. Achieving it is non-negotiable for me. So for me, if I don't achieve something I set myself out to, I am somebody who will feel great deep shame. I am somebody who will most definitely sit and beat myself up and tell myself that I'm an absolute failure and I don't deserve anything good tomorrow. And I will be that person. As an example, let's pretend I failed at a diet this week, or let's change the word diet to healthy eating. So I'll plan that this week I'm going to eat really well. I've made my food plan and I have a whoopsie. So then what will happen is I'll go, oh, well, I stuffed up once, so I might as well go and have McDonald's for dinner. And I stuffed up, my food today, so I might as well have a bottle of wine tonight. And this is what happens, and I kind of spiral into this. Well, I'm a failure. I might as well be a complete failure. I might as well be brilliant at being a failure. Right, so what can we do if we have this moment of what we feel is a failure? What would you do in a situation like that? What would a Stoic do in one of those situations to not fall down the Sarah style snowball?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That I think is the key to success. We have to learn how to fail. If we don't accept that failure is actually a possibility, these slogans that go around the internet and through gym culture, failure is not an option. Well, if failure isn't an option, then success isn't an option either, because we're going to fail. We're going to stumble. We're going to fall off the path that we're trying to follow. And those are the actual keys to success. It's what do I do when I fail? Not if I fail, but when I fail. So one of the things that I always recommend is that you just pause. That's one thing. Like, think about what you're doing, because again, it's that moment of choice. And again, from Stoic philosophy, one of the things that Epictetus, my favorite philosopher, I'm kind of getting onto my soapbox here, but showing my nerdy side. He says that what we are in essence is choice. Mm-hmm. So we aren't a certain way necessarily, according to the Stoics, especially according to Epictetus, but we are choice. So if you make your choice beautiful, or if you make your choice healthy, then that is what you are in that moment. You are beautiful when you make a beautiful choice. You are healthy when you make a healthy choice. Now, the issue is, okay, I just had a treat that I didn't think I wanted, or I didn't want to have. Now, we could think, okay, well, I'm a slob because I made a slovenly choice. But we try not to then identify with that. We step back from it and think, okay, I chose something that I didn't want, but I can still make an excellent choice in the next moment. So trying to stop that downward, like you were saying, well, I might as well just toss it all in now because, well, that's what I did. And obviously sometimes that is stress release in itself. So it's a bit of a way to just think, the pressure's too much. I'm just going to let go a little bit. As long as that doesn't happen too often, right? We don't have to be, like I say, 100% excellent all the time. That's for the sage, right? The Stoic sage, the ideal. But every once in a while, it's okay. We're going to fail. And then to accept that. So to not beat ourselves up, to not feel that shame, because, we're human beings. We're not anything beyond that. And we don't live up to our standards all the time. We live up to our training. So you have to think, what am I practicing in this moment? And we just do the best we can. That would be my answer to that one.
Lovely. You've really reminded me there of something. In fact, I was reading one of my old blog posts yesterday about what makes people hate you or like you. I can't remember the name of the post, but I'll stick it in the links below. But it's interesting, the way that we're brought up makes us decide who we need to be, which is obviously this point you're saying about stoicism. It's who we're being, it's how we're living. Now, I remember when I very first started in business, I was extremely young to start in business, particularly in the education sector. And a lot of my clients were very much government large corporations. And there was me, this very young little blonde thing with a smile from ear to ear. So I immediately felt like I had to work harder than a lot of my competition to be taken seriously. And for me, it was really important that I came across very, very professional, the best of the best, that I was super successful, because I felt like I had a harder fight to be taken seriously in my industry at that age. And I remember very much being that person who was so obsessed with looking perfect and looking like the right person that my clients would want to see, that I would only post or share or communicate my wins and my successes and my achievements. I categorically remember trying desperately to hide the cracks, hide anything that might show the tiniest fraction of weakness or imperfection or anything, because I was like, I have to look amazing all the time, or my credibility will be out the window. And after a while, I kind of realized that I was creating a wider and wider and wider gap between me and any other human being in the world, because I was literally pumping out this image of perfection and showing no weaknesses and no failures at all, that people were no longer able to relate to me as a human being. Like, people were no longer able to see my life, what I do, what I teach, as something that was even attainable for them, because my life just looked so perfect. And there was one particular day for me, it was back in late 2014, when the government cut this massive government fund. I lost $2.7 million and all my staff in a single day. I was literally facing administration. And after a long, deep and meaningful week with a bottle of wine, I kind of got to a point where I was like, well, I literally have nothing else to lose. Everything's gone. I'm starting from scratch. And I had this day, I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the after effects of too much wine. But I went onto Facebook and I just told the story. All the dirt, the gore, everything. I just went, boof, here is how I completely ruined my business, right? And told everybody, oh my goodness, my messages were flooded. I had more communication from my clients and customers than I had ever had. And so many people reached out to me and said, my goodness, you are human after all. And it really, really hit me that I had been building up this perfect, untrue, inauthentic picture of myself by literally leaving out the human parts. And from that day, I have genuinely made it a mission to share everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the mistakes I made most of all. And I think as educators, we become a better teacher when we share our mistakes so that those following us don't make them too. And it's really amazing, like what you're saying. I'd never quite connected that with Stoicism before, actually, until we just had this conversation. I think we've all got a lot to learn, haven't we, by it's all about who we're being, not what we're doing. And we are human beings. So we just have to be a bit more being in order to be our best version of ourselves, right? I mean, how would Stoicism see that?
Yeah, it's honesty, it's authenticity, it's just like you say, it's being, right? I don't know what the ancient Stoics would say about particularly what you're saying at the moment, but from what I understand, it's being in the moment. It's not being fake. If I don't know the answer, as a trainer, it's not in the client's best interest for me to try to come up with something on the spot. It's much better if I say, actually, I don't know, I'll get back to you on that one. You stumped me, kind of thing. And you talk about imposter syndrome, and one of your articles on that was brilliant. And that really comes down to what you're saying. You create this image and you just keep building it and building it and building it until finally, you're actually down here, but the image is way up here. And the stress that's in between that is phenomenal, right? So yeah, it's not wise in my estimation to try to fake. And actually, I just had a podcast with a trainer maybe a month and a half ago, and we talked about how quite often clients will think that trainers are perfect. And I said, well, that's just completely false. So we're going to definitely talk about this and, sleep in, eat garbage, be lazy, and don't do a workout. Like, these are things trainers do. We just do the right things more often and the wrong things less often than people who aren't at our level. That's pretty much it. But we're definitely not perfect. Nobody is that I know of.
I think that's really nice reassurance. Yeah, I like the fact you've brought up that imposter syndrome, doesn't it? Because I think it ties a lot into leaders and educators. And sometimes we hold back what it is that we can share with the world, that excellence we're talking about, that gift, that purpose that we are here to serve and live. We hold it back because we're afraid that, we might not come across as excellent. We might not come across as perfect or our own internal definition of perfect. We're so afraid of, whether we will be good enough or be seen to be good enough when we go out there, that, that we wait, we stop, or we don't do. So what you're saying then, I think I'm hearing from you, is to really be a better human. If we are going to follow this Stoic philosophy, is that actually we're better going out there, warts and all, than not going out there at all. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure. It's that being able to embrace failure. It's not that we're imperfect. It's just that we are who we are. And if we try to have a persona that we're putting forward all the time, that has its place as well. I mean, we try to aspire to something, and it has to be beyond where we are. But if we pretend that that's actually who we are, then, like you say, we lose our authenticity, and we lose that ability for people to relate to us, because all they're dealing with is this shell that's in front of them, as opposed to, actually, this is who I really am, and I'm just as messed up as you are. Maybe I'm a few steps ahead.
Yeah, that's it. Wonderful. Now, when we had a chat before this episode recorded, you told me you've got a burpees tip for us, right? There's a technique that you use to help yourself be a better human being, like you teach other people. It's about burpees. Now, I'm terrified of these. I am so unfit. It's another thing I need to work on. But can you tell us what this tip is about?
Well, it depends what you think a burpee is to begin with. Now, the interesting thing is that there actually was a fellow named Royal H. Burpee, and he was a physiologist. And if I remember right, in the 1940s, he came up with an exercise to test the fitness of young men in the day. And so it's actually named after him. And there's no push-up involved, and there's no jump.
I'm liking the sound of this more and more. Okay, keep going.
So what we normally look at as, oh, that's a burpee. I call it a gym burpee. Some people call it a CrossFit burpee, or like a Spartan race burpee. Those are those mud runs that people do, obstacle course racing. And those are the ones that are held as the standard, but that's actually not technically a burpee. And so in my course that I created using your method and your teachings, I actually break a burpee down from one that's even easier than the classic, all the way up to that, what I call the gym burpee. So there are gradations in between the two extremes. So one that's very easy and one that's really tough. So we can find where we need to be, or start with a tough one, and then as we get more tired, we can start doing the easier versions, or work our way from the easy all the way up to the tough ones. So yeah, again, it's that standard, right? We have to understand what the standards are so that we don't have to think, oh, we're failing, right?
That's cool. So if we want to find out those, we're going to have to check out your course to see what these actual burpees are. I'm excited to check those out. It's interesting that a lot of us can shy away from things that we're not very good at, and that I'm going to openly admit that I do exactly the same. I avoid hardcore physical fitness because I'm not very good at it right now. Well, I know that if I started doing some fitness, I would be better at it and I would avoid it less. So it's all so simple, isn't it? But we have clever brains that keep us safe in the safe zone, and that's what stops us challenging ourselves and reaching our full potential, right?
Yeah.
So now, Stoic Strength is the name of your business. Now, before we go, I'd love to know, why did you call it Stoic Strength? You know, it's. I know a lot of people can make their own minds up about what these different words mean, but why did you name your business that?
Well, part of it is that I didn't want people to be hemmed in by Stoicism itself, the philosophy. So I talk more about Stoic, the strength of the Stoics, as opposed to actually being a Stoic. Not everybody's interested in the philosophy, but the thing about Stoics is that they are able to handle chaos. They're able to handle stress very, very well. And it's because of their philosophy. So I thought, okay, so I actually focus more on the strength. So I called it Stoic Strength. And that I have a term that I call virtuous self-control, which then ties to virtue, which is a Stoic idea. And virtuous self-control basically means self-control and excellence, both of those together. And it's that moment of choice stuff. It's having a standard. It's doing your best to choose to live up to that standard. So I kind of encapsulated everything that I was thinking of, but still keeping it very simple. And so I based it on Stoicism, but I don't want to have people think, well, I have to be a Stoic to get into the philosophy of exercise that I'm teaching. So that was the reason why I went into that. Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. Now you've mentioned your course that you've created. Now, for a lot of people listening, there's going to be some people that are in that stage now of just thinking about creating their courses or getting started. But as you know, it's a very overwhelming process when you're at the first page. You've got a blank page in front of you. You've gone through the process. You've got your course created. You've done it now. You know, congratulations, first of all. Can you share some tips and advice with people about that moment? You know, you're about to begin, you want to do it, you know you really want to, but it's that first like, whoa, I'm overwhelmed, where do I start? I mean, what's your advice for people at that stage right now?
It's typical advice. It's basically, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Put out, one of the best things I ever heard was put out crap 1.0. And it's basically, it's going to be not as good as you want. It's not going to be the product. It's not going to work as well. It's not going to look as well as you imagine that it could be. And that's perfect. That is exactly what you want. There's actually a principle in improv theater where they say that anything that you do is going to be 50% not great, like garbage, and 50% gold. But if you try to get the garbage down to less than 50%, the gold is also going to drop. So if you get it down to 40% garbage, the gold is going to drop to 40% as well. But the idea is if you start with 50% not that great and 50% gold, and then you just leave the gold, and then you just start working on this until finally this becomes less. This is still there because it's a finished product, right? So you can actually make it better by actually getting it out into the world in the first place. So just start. That's the key. You just have to decide, all right, I'm just going to do it, even if it turns out to be not that great. And I'm not super stoked about what I did. I mean, I'm obviously very proud, and I think, yeah, I went through a lot to get it out there. But at the same time, I realized I could have done a better job, and that's okay. That's why I called it 1.0, because I'm going to have 2.0 and then 3.0, and it's just going to keep getting better and better. And I wouldn't have been able to learn how much better it could have been until I made what I made. Now I have something, I have a foundation, right? And that's the key. Get it out there, start.
It's so true. You know, I always say to people, you know, your first version's going to be a bit sucky. Your second version will suck less. Version 3 will suck less than that. And you eventually get there. And I think it was you, Korey, that actually shared an article in my Facebook group, Entrepreneur to Edupreneur. And I read that article and there was a beautiful line in there that really stood out for me. In fact, so much so I'm remembering it right now. And the line was, if this article did not have a spelling mistake in it, we published it too late.
Right.
And I kind of from that have taken my own version of, you know, if your course is perfect when you publish it, you've published it too late. And it's so true, isn't it? You know, you learn so much from that first attempt, from that first go. You know, you go on and create more every single time. It just becomes a completely different experience and a totally different approach. And the more experienced version of yourself just makes it better next time. It's so good. What was the hardest bit for you of creating your online course?
I think it was organizing it into basically something that made sense. I had a hard time with that. I knew the pieces that I wanted to have in the course, and then it was, okay, now how do I put this together so that it actually flows? So it's like a nice journey for the students. I'm not sure if I actually it could have been better, perhaps. I'm not really sure, but I like what I came up with. But in this beginning, I struggled with that. It's like anything. A lot of times we have all these skills, but we don't really know how to make it into something that we can offer to someone. And that was the tough part for me.
Yeah, interesting. What bit did you kind of love the most about the whole experience here? Was there anything that surprised you that was easier than you thought, or that kind of particularly kind of set your heart on fire or excited you about the process?
Well, mostly it was learning how to create videos, because that was not something that I was actually super comfortable with. So being on camera, getting the angles so that I could look at myself and think, yeah, that looks good. And editing, learning how to edit video, like that was all a really, really steep learning curve as well. But in the end, I learned a lot, and now it actually doesn't feel that intimidating anymore. And I actually, being on camera, listening to the sound of my own voice, it's all okay. You know, I don't necessarily love it. I get a little nervous still, but at the same time, it was all that filming that made a big difference. I think that was kind of cool to learn, for sure.
A skill that will serve you for life, now officially in your toolbox. It's pretty clever, isn't it? Look, we're coming to the end of today's show, so I'd love to ask you, do you have any final thoughts, final tips or anything for our listeners today, Korey?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I really had to work on as well was all I did was work. When I started working on a course, I wasn't exercising. Even as a trainer, I was trying to make this product. And so I would recommend that even though you think, I need to get this done, and I'm just going to work for 6 hours straight, make sure that you're giving yourself some time to actually let your body move, because the movement of the body actually does stimulate the thinking in the brain. We need to give our eyes a break. We can't just be staring at a screen for, again, all those hours in a row. The eyes need to focus a little bit differently, you know, gaze off into the outside. But at the same time, stand up, move around, let the blood circulate again. It's good for everything. It's good for the entire process. You will be more productive. It doesn't feel like you will be, but you're stopping your workflow to do something physical. But in the end, you'll be healthier, you'll sleep better, you'll be more focused. So other than that, get started as well. Like just do it. Put it out there. I think almost everybody says that same thing. It's just do it, get it out. no matter what you do.
Do it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Korey, it's been amazing having you on today. And in the show notes below, there are links to all of Korey's course, to his online school, social media channels and website. So do go and follow him, go check him out and go and have a look at his courses. In the meantime, if you are ready to change your world, if you're ready to help other people change theirs too, now is the time for you to create your very own online course. Please come and join myself and a group of fellow course creators in my next Concept to Course. It's my 30-day course creation group coaching program, where I will personally hold your hand and take you through coming up with creating, filming and publishing your very own online course in just 30 days. You can join me there on sarahcordiner.com/do-it. And I cannot wait to help you get your course out to the world. In the meantime, best wishes, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.